Gospel for the 14th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year A. Jesus wants us to have peace, and that peace comes through humility. If we look at what we might call levels of happiness, there is a joy that might be called extreme happiness, and we see this in the Old Testament reading from Zechariah. Rejoice heartily, O daughter Zion. Shout for joy, O daughter Jerusalem. Why are they rejoicing? It goes on. See, your king shall come to you. A just Savior is he, meek and riding on an ass, on a colt, the foal of an ass. Immediately, we think of Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. In fact, this Old Testament passage is quoted in the Gospel that is read at the beginning of the procession on Palm Sunday. So we hear this passage twice throughout the year. The people of Jerusalem did rejoice at that moment. Imagine how they felt after years, centuries of waiting for the Messiah. They believed that in front of their own eyes, the Messiah was coming to them. A somewhat modern example, maybe not as modern as it used to be, but in World War II, the Allies liberated Europe from Nazi Germany. Think of the people in Paris as the Allies rode in. These people knew that they were being delivered from evil. The people of Jerusalem felt that same way, but they didn't grasp that the deliverance Jesus was bringing was deeper than they could imagine, and it wouldn't come about through military action and war. In fact, Zechariah goes on to say that the Savior will banish the chariot and the warrior's bow, and he shall proclaim peace to the nations. Now that we live in the Christian era, we know that this prophecy is not fulfilled, right? Because there has been war, and there still is war. Yet, we know that there is a deliverance that Jesus offers. It occurs in the depths of our hearts. So the delirious, extreme happiness and joy of Jesus' arrival passed. The horror of the crucifixion passed. The hidden glory of the resurrection passed. And what are we left with? In the Gospel of John, as Jesus is giving his farewell speech to the disciples, he says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you." We are left with the Savior who offers us peace, a Savior who is meek. Notice that both the passage from Zechariah and this week's Gospel describe Jesus as meek. He was humble. Now, it doesn't need to be said that meek does not mean wimpy. Rather, it is the result of Christ's immense power. He tells us in the Gospel that all things have been handed over to me by my Father. All things. Jesus is in charge. I think of martial arts masters, karate and so forth. They don't go around beating people up. Instead, they possess a quiet strength because they know, yes, they have the power, yes, to beat people up. In the same way, this week's Gospel continues that the all-powerful Jesus reveals the Father to us, to each of us, all in a spirit of peace. He says we must learn to be gentle and lowly of heart. If we are, then Jesus promises we will find rest. We don't earn this gift from Jesus. We don't work for it. Far from it. He says that his yoke, his manner of instruction is easy and his burden light. With that said, we do have to heed St. Paul's warning in the reading from Romans. We have to avoid sin. He writes, "For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. We know this already. We know we have to avoid sin. We know we have to put to death the deeds of the body. It's so simple, but I often fail. Why? Ultimately, it's because we have not learned to be gentle and lowly like Jesus. If we are gentle, we won't be angry or impatient. We will be kind and ready to help others. If we are lowly, we won't think too highly of ourselves. We won't be greedy or covet what does not belong to us, or exploit people selfishly for our own benefit. So let us look to Jesus as the model and giver of peace and rest. Certainly we can welcome moments of delirious joy like those foretold by Zechariah. Yet, once the excitement passes, we can experience the underlying, enduring rest in the Lord, who has revealed to us that he is all-powerful, yet who lived an example of meekness and humility for us to imitate. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves."